Hi everyone. So this is the last video for the semester I'm going to post. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to send out some emails with regard to wrapping up final exams as well as final speeches. But this is the last instructional video as far as what it is we are going to be completing. So for this video, there's a few things we need to go over. And again, in Canvas under Files, there's going to be a Word document that has links to some of the extra videos you need to watch. So go ahead and find those, click on those when you need to. All right. So the things we need to cover quickly in this last video for the semester. You have what are called student choice speeches coming up. We're going to briefly talk about special occasion speeches. Specifically, there is a quiz on Ronald Reagan's speech with the Challenger disaster in the late 80s. So make sure that you read that speech, which is located on Canvas under additional readings. Take the quiz on that speech. And then also there is a link to a Conan O'Brien graduation speech that I want you to watch just to kind of get the feel for what's happening in a special occasion speech that's different than persuasive speech, informative speech. Those speeches are trying to obviously inform people about, give people information about a specific topic. Persuasion is more of some sort of like political or social cultural issue. You're trying to get people onto your side. With regard to the Conan O'Brien speech, it's more graduation, it's celebratory. These speeches sort of fall under memorials, sort of recognizing important dates, important moments. You could think about a best man speech or an Oscar winning speech. That's what these special occasion speeches are all about. So if we look at just special occasion speeches broadly, the two speeches you're going to check out this week, Ronald Reagan's Challenger speech, as well as Conan O'Brien's graduation speech, both very different, coming from different situations. Obviously, there's going to be a different tone to them, but these speeches are really sort of marking certain occasions, and that's what's important with regard to special occasion speeches. One thing I want you to notice specifically in the Conan O'Brien speech is the idea of audience awareness. So if we think a lot about graduation speeches, sometimes people reflect, unfortunately, that they are very boring. They seem very vanilla or boilerplate, cut and paste. Go out there, conquer the world, you all have a bright future. It seems very predictable. In the Conan O'Brien speech, he really takes the time to get to know his audience, and he sort of works those elements into the speech. So make sure as you're watching this Dartmouth graduation speech, you sort of recognize like Conan O'Brien took a lot of time to understand his audience and speak directly to his audience. And that's what becomes important in these speeches, is being able to speak directly to your audience and being able to capture the moment, the tone and tenor of the moment, while keeping it interesting and keeping people's attention. Okay, so check out those two speeches for this week. With the Ronald Reagan speech, you have a quiz. With the Conan O'Brien speech, enjoy it. It's quite fun. So what is going to be due next week that you can start working on now is your final speech, and we're calling this the student choice speech. The reason I call it a student choice speech is because so far you've done several speeches where I've given you a lot more direction with regard to format, tone, tenor, topic, and the rest of it. With regard to student choice speech, you really do have sort of broad range of what you're going to do. Now, just because I give you broad range doesn't mean that you automatically get to just not follow any rules. You still need to have things like good tone, good voice, energy, but you also need to have good outline. You need to have good organization. People need to be able to follow your speech and understand the story that you're trying to tell within the speech or the direction you're trying to move within the speech. So don't just take all the rules and throw them out the window now. But now is a time where you are allowed to be more flexible with how the rules are going on. All right. So what you're going to do for this speech, it's a 5 to 6 minute speech. You do not have to turn in anything except turn in a Word document with a link to your YouTube video. You don't have to do an outline. You don't have to type up any speeches. The only thing you have to do, though, is send me your YouTube link so that I can access the video and watch you give your speech. All right. The speech is going to be in a style of your choice. It can be on a topic of your choice. Use note cards. Try not to be looking down constantly at a sheet of paper. All right. So some examples of what students have done. All right, we just went over ceremonial speeches, Conan O'Brien speech, Ronald Reagan's Challenger speech. You can create a speech for a special occasion that has happened in your life or for an imagined occasion. So for example, you can give a best man speech at a wedding. If you think a friend of yours is getting married, you could give that type of speech. You could also give your own eulogy, which has been kind of fun and interesting that students have done. Students have also given speeches for themselves on behalf of like entering some sort of Hall of Fame, after they, have an imaginary sports career, or given an award if they won an Oscar. So you can sort of imagine these events that might happen in your life, that the speech you might want to give. That's fine. All right. 5 to 6 minutes. Some other examples: you could revisit an informative or a persuasive speech that maybe you just haven't, that you abandoned the first time around. So some students, if they still like the organizational pattern, they still like the sort of more strict format of an informative speech or a persuasive speech, you're welcome to go back to those elements. You still need to be able to cite some sources throughout those speeches, but again, I'm not collecting anything on this speech, so you don't have to turn in an outline or any references. Just verbally mention those references throughout your speech. All right. So if you like the format idea, you're welcome to do a second informative speech or a persuasive speech. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be 5 to 6 minutes long. So those are all your options. Again, student choice. It's pretty broad and wide open for what you could do for this speech. 5 to 6 minutes in any format that you'd like. There is no format for how you have to give the speech. You can organize it as you see fit, but remember, the audience still must be able to follow your main points and understand your overall themes. So if we kind of go back to the Cornel West speech that we watched a few weeks ago, Cornel West, his graduation speech was interesting because it still had those elements of organization in them. So he had this sort of section where he talked about what is education, or he started off with like, let's think our family. He talks about the importance of family and community. Then he talks about like, what is education? What are we doing here in a higher ed institution? And then his final point is about sort of tackling the future. Now, he doesn't have the signpost of first, second, third, I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z, but he still sort of has a recognizable pattern of organization in that speech. I think you're going to find similar things in the Conan O'Brien speech. He doesn't say first I'm going to talk about this, second I'm going to talk about whatever, third I'm going to talk about, the last thing. But he does still have sort of recognizable chunks of themes throughout his speech that you can recognize. So there's no format for this, but if you're giving a speech, make sure that you try to section it off in ways that make sense so that the audience can sort of follow your pattern. But because it's the end of the class, you don't necessarily need those generic transitions. Now you're sort of being a little bit more loose with the rules and kind of creating your own transitions from one section to the next. All right. We spent all semester long learning the rules of a well-prepared speech. Now is your opportunity to get a little creative, flexible. Again, it does not mean that the rules are useless. Again, I would go back to Cornel West graduation speech at Spelman. He didn't use a strict format, but again, you could see that he has these sort of sections of family, education, and future. All right. You don't have to turn in anything for this speech except for the link to your YouTube video. So just go ahead and put that YouTube link in a Word document, submit it on Canvas. Everybody's speech is going to be due next Friday, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday. So you have about a week and a half to get this done. And then it's expected you're going to use emotions, energy, all that other kind of good stuff we've talked about with regard to delivery. Finally, this is what the evaluation form looks like. This is posted up online, so go ahead and check out these instructions as well as this grading rubric. All of it's online. It's worth 100 points, so 10% of your grade. Check out where your grade is now, and you can start to judge about the grade that you need in order to kind of bump yourself up to the next grade, or what might happen if you don't do so well in this speech and you might lower your grade a few points, and now you're down a letter grade. All right. So make sure professional attire, clear organized thesis, clear evidence of practice, nonverbal cues, and then all the good voice stuff we've talked about. So for this speech, because we're not turning in an outline and you don't have any sources, those things aren't going to be relevant in the evaluation. So for this, the only thing that I can grade on is solid organization, professional appearance, and energy and voice. So those are really the only elements that can go into grading, because I'm not following any sort of argument that you're making through an outline. So make sure that those things are wrapped up nicely. The speech is due at the end of next week, so again, about 10-11 days from now. And that's your final speech for the semester. After that, you have a final exam during final exam week, and we have wrapped up the semester. That's all I have. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. By this week, make sure that your Ronald Reagan quiz on the Challenger speech is completed by this week. And then next week is your student choice speech. All right, I will see you all later.